In today's video, I will be showing how I use my bowl gouges. I'm not saying that this is the only way to do it. Your safety is your responsibility. I picked out a really nice piece of black walnut to turn, but it is soaking wet. But there's a reason for that. I've had a couple questions from people that are just getting into wood turning. What's better to turn, green or wet? Also, I've been asked to show my gouges, the angles, why I grind them the way I do. So while I'm turning this piece, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about why the green wood is nice to turn, because it is, and a few other things, and we'll talk about them once I get going. I'm using a larger chuck here, gives me a wider surface to mount this against, but the main thing is when I turn a tenon on here, if I decide to do a twice turn bowl, that's going to shrink. I want to have something big enough that I can get down to the right size. And I'm not saying we're doing a twice turn bowl today. I'm just throwing that out. So we'll get that mounted up and we will get to turning. Got the corners off. I did some with the bandsaw, and I think that was chainsawed off, and I didn't think I needed to cut anymore. If you have any way to cut this down so it's just not a rectangle, that's a good way to get going, especially if you're new to wood turning. I like to use tailstock support. We've got that in there. I'll go ahead and show you a couple of the gouges that I use, and this is a 5/8 and it's called a conventional grind. It doesn't have any wings on here, so it's not ground back this way. That line goes all the way around here and stays in the same place, like that. This is a 5/8. It started out as a fingernail grind from the factory, and I've swept it back just a little bit more than what it was when I started. And how I check my angles, and this is 35 degrees. I have that set for 35. I'll hold it against the shaft like this and come down, and that's right on 35 degrees. This is a 1/2 inch, same grind, exact same grind. That's also 35 degrees like that. And how do I keep these the same all the time? I use one of these fixtures here. It's called a Vari-Grind. It's consistent. I made this little diagram. I will put this at the end of the video and you can examine what's going on. Now, a lot of people get confused. I said that's 35 degrees. Sometimes it's called 55 degrees. It depends if you're measuring from that surface or this surface. It's one and the same. So I'm going to add this to the end and you can have a look at that. And if you want to copy it, that's great. So it's time to get back to turning some wood, so let's get after it. Alright, that's enough about that right now. Let's start making some chips. So when I start on this, I want to try to get it round. I find it a little bit easier to kind of come across that corner. We're not trying to save any bark, so we don't have to worry about that. You want to get it going at a fairly good rate, as long as it's not shaking. We're about 700 RPM. I talked about this in the last video. There's a little burr inside of here. That's what that clicking noise is. Alright, I got my face shield on. And we will start cutting the corners off of this. If I come here and come across, it's going to be a little bit easier than just going straight up. I'm fairly close to being on center here, but I'll be holding the gouge like this and taking the corners away. And I am using the 5/8 conventional grind. So to show you the difference, this is the fingernail grind, and it's It's probably my preferable tool for taking corners off, but I wanted you to see how that worked. Now you can see I took a much larger bite with this tool here. When you're holding this gouge, you're just holding this somewhat lightly onto the tool rest. You're not trying to steer with it at all. Your steering comes from your hip or your side. You don't use your arm, you use your whole body. This is going to be a nice looking piece of wood. I'm going to go ahead and finish rounding this off. Like I say, that's the 5/8, and I'll use that on all of the outside, except maybe when I get up to a finished cut I might go to the 1/2 inch. About 750 RPM now. So I've switched to the 1/2 inch bowl gouge, and I want to try to explain how I find my cut and start it here and hopefully end up at that end taking the same amount off. Heavy cuts are pretty easy to get in there and take a continuous cut. A lighter cut, not so easy. So you'll hear it said that you should ride the bevel. Well, to a certain extent this is true. But if you only ride the bevel, the tip's never going to cut. Nothing's going to happen. You can make a nice smooth cut up here, but you won't take any wood. So what you have to do is you have to rotate the handle towards your body. That's exaggerating till the tip is cutting. And I also like to get the gouge tilted up with the face open somewhat like this, maybe almost 45 degrees. So now I think I just kind of have to show you because it's hard to explain it while I'm not doing anything. But that's the whole idea. I'm going to show you what I mean by not making a cut. I'm completely on the bevel, nothing's cutting. If I'm back here on the heel, obviously it's not going to cut. So we're going to find the bevel completely. I'm going to open the gouge up. I'm going to rotate it away just a little bit like this. So these are pretty fine shavings, and it's nice and smooth, and that's how I do it anyways. So as I'm going up in here, if I feel like I'm losing my contact with the tip, I don't know how to show you, but don't try to steer it like this. Again, this is up against the side, whether it's on your hip or up higher. You're going to twist your body, and I'm just talking about very little twisting and making sure I keep that cut the same. And when you make your movement this way, you're not doing it with your arms. You're rocked back. You rock towards that direction. That's the feed there. Your body also twists to keep the cut. I think that's probably good. I need to cut this tenon down to a size I can grab a hold of and shorten it a little bit. Okay, let's go ahead and flip this around and hollow out the inside. So I've got the worm screw out of there. I've opened up the jaws a little bit, and that fits. And that's a dovetail that I cut on that. That's another thing I like about these larger jaws for bigger pieces, even though this is not a big piece. Having dovetail jaws and the size I have, I don't think I need to use the tailstock support. I've got it flipped around and nice and secure. I measured the diameter, it's about 8 inches. If you were going to do a twice turn bowl, you would do 10% of that. So like 0.8, which is almost 13/16, or 3/4 would probably be fine. And then you'd put it in a bag of sawdust and put it on a shelf and wait and wait and wait and wait. And I don't do that. I can't stand waiting that long. But I do have a drying box that I made, and there's a video of that. And it's using similar plans to what Rick Turns had a video on. So I'll put a link to mine. We're not going to do that though, because I don't like waiting 2 months. Right now we're just going to rough it down to that size so you can see what it looks like. And then I've got a little plan here I'm going to surprise you with, and I hope you're not disappointed. Go ahead and use the 5/8 bowl gouge, and as long as I can stay out of your way, you should be able to see this. Check the walls again. It's pretty even. Okay, I think this is about as far as you'd have to go if you wanted to let it dry. The other option is just to keep going and make a thin bowl out of it. But I want to think about this for a second, and I'll be right back and show you what's going to happen. Alright, I think I've hinted a couple times about I had something a little different to do today, and maybe it's kind of corny, but I thought it'd be fun. That's the bowl we just turned. At the beginning, I think it was between 37 and 42% before I turned on it. Right now, this is sitting at 28% down here, where it's a little thicker where the sides meet the base. Well, this was a whole log to begin with, and I cut it in half. Well, you know where the other half is? It's in my drying box. Right here. Today's the 19th of November. I put this in on the 9th. When I put it in the box, I had 34% written on it. I just checked it, and it's at 11%. And around here, with the way the weather is right now, that's not too bad. So we're not going to finish this one. We're going to finish this one so we get a twice turn bowl without even waiting. I showed this box before in a video. Cardboard box behind this piece of venting material, which I really don't need anymore. I used to put a light bulb in there. I didn't even use a light bulb on this, just a computer fan. Right here, we'll take it off. Just that computer fan that blows air through it, comes out a hole up in the corner right there, and it dried that bowl, I think, plenty good enough. Well, it's the next day. I got all those wet shavings cleaned up last night, so I think we're ready to go ahead and turn this. It's now been sitting for 10 days, and we get it chucked up. I'm leaving this big chuck in here just for a nice base for this to line up on. We're going to use that existing center. And I haven't turned it on yet. I'm going to turn it down and see how it runs. And it is out a little bit, and I expected that. But it's not very much. We have plenty of stock. First thing I'm going to do is clean this side up, and this is sitting pretty flat. I don't think it's going to move. I will start with my 5/8 bowl gouge, and I'll probably be turning around. I got 900 RPM and it's running nice and smooth. I want to get my face sealed and see if we can make a nice shape out of what we have left. To clean the bottom up, I'm going to cut that tenon down to the other size of jaws I have. I think I said I'd switch jaws, but I meant switch chucks. We'll see how it runs. Pretty good. Use the 1/2" bowl gouge for this. Back to about 800 RPM. I'll cut the inside, and when I roughed this out, looking at the video, I just bumped you. It was hard to really see much, and the video started getting real long, so I kind of went through that fairly quick, and I can do a video just on the inside, but mostly I wanted to show that cut on the outside here. So let's see if I can get that camera where I don't bump up with my head again, and we'll get to cutting. Okay, I think I got you safe from my head that keeps bumping that camera, or the face shield. So I think I've shown this before, but one of the trickier cuts is to get a cut going down, trying to thin that wall out. I try to get the flutes where they're 90 degrees to the bed. Start with the point, and as soon as I get a cut, I start opening it up and turning it this way like that. In this cut, it's kind of hard to hold this against your hip or your side because, you know, the bed's in the way. So I'll see if I can do this. Like so. If you're having trouble with it, another way to help you learn is you can take your parting tool, and then you can create that same place right there. And now I've got a nice start. I did that because it was fun. I think we have it. Yes, sir. We'll clean that little bottom area out of here with the negative rake scraper. Well, I think we can actually sand from here. I'm going to get my face shield and face mask off. So that's one way to get a very wet piece of wood turned. And I don't really like doing twice turn bowls, but I did do this because somebody asked about it. I'm going to go ahead and sand, and I'll just show you a little bit. You've seen me sand before. I know the video is getting long and I don't want to bore you with a bunch of sanding. But if you're wondering, is this really dry? I'm going to show you how dry it actually is. I'll sand it a little bit before I turn the dust collector on, and you will see a lot of sawdust coming off of here. So let's go ahead and do that. You see that coming off? That's dry. Now we'll turn this on. Getting in there. It's dry. So I only think it's fair that you get to watch the first coat of finish go on this piece. And I'm using Minwax water-based sanding sealer. I don't think you can see the chatoyance down in this area right here. Maybe that's better. It is just amazing. You're going to see it here pretty soon when we're all finished. So, I'll go ahead and get this done here on the inside, outside, and then I will be back and we will talk about what we have here. Well, a lot going on in today's video, and like I said in the beginning, I've had a lot of people ask me. They say, I'm new to wood turning, I want to use gouges, but I'm kind of afraid of them. I don't know what I should do. What angles do you grind them on, and how do you bring the gouge into the work to get a nice cut? Also been asked, am I better off starting out using green wood or dry wood? So I tried to answer those questions. And I took a green piece of walnut, black walnut, and I roughed it out to a size where you could set it aside and let it dry. And I also mentioned I don't like waiting a long time. So I used this little cardboard box, and as you saw me turning the first one, all of a sudden I said, well, let's go ahead and finish this up. I brought the box over and I pulled out this blank here. It was roughed out. It was maybe 3/4 wall thickness left, and that's what I made out of it. Beautiful piece of black walnut. Grain is wonderful. Sanded it up. I put a coat of Minwax water-based sanding sealer on it, and then I use Axe abrasive paste on the inside and the outside. And here's the bottom. I think it looks pretty nice. So what did I do with the other blank? Well, here's the other blank. So once I finished this, the next day I took that blank, which was still soaking wet, and I turned it down to 1/4 inch. So this was like turning a once turned green bowl is what this turned out to be. I didn't show that. I've turned other green bowls, and to keep the video from being way too long, I didn't show that. But you can watch how this is turned in some of my other videos, how I turn a green bowl down to size. So I think this turned out really nice as well. It did warp a little bit. Since then, I think it's maybe 3/16 out around. I sanded up really nice, and I haven't finished the bottom. I have something in mind I want to do with this, and you might be seeing that in a few weeks. So there's two ways to do this. You can turn it green and deal with some warpage, which makes it a little harder to sand if you don't get it sanded right away. Or you can dry it in a drying box and end up with this, which is perfectly round. I think it turned out really nice. So I hope that I answered some of the questions, and two different ways to get there, two different beautiful bowls. Look at that. That's amazing. So I hope you got something out of this video, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did like the video, do me a favor. Click that like button and feel free to leave a comment. Both of those things will really help my channel grow. I do lots of different types of turnings, and you never know what might be next. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see more. And a special thanks to all my current subscribers. You really mean a lot to me. Till the next time, see you later.